Remnant 2 is a Souls-like all about guns. Small guns, bigger guns. But what if we stripped the gameplay back down to basics and used the old reliable method of bonking everything to death? That means no guns, no weapon mods, and a fresh new character to find out if you can beat Remnant 2 with only melee. And you might be surprised to see just how viable it is. This run started on the computer. Before committing myself to this insanity, I wanted to do some research and see what I was letting myself in for. After mere minutes of browsing, my screen was flooded with angry Reddit threads and Steam discussions about how useless melee weapons were in Remnant 2. This didn't fill me with confidence. But since I'm a glutton for punishment, I decided to suffer and prove them wrong. So, my class of choice was the Challenger, because if I've said it once, I'll say it again. Big fucking sword. But it was apparent keeping myself alive long enough to slap everyone sideways was going to be crucial. And the Challenger specializes in being harder than a weeb in a nursery, so he was the obvious option. Now, I should specify the run is on normal difficulty, and that is because I have very little faith that this will work out. Luckily, Bloodborne World was my first stop. I say luckily because generally the enemies in Lossome Streets are melee focused, aside from the odd musket enthusiast. So, for the first hour, I was effectively doing a greatsword run of Dark Souls. It's just time dodging and attacking. And things were going smoothly. Melee combat is still a bit janky, exacerbated by the lack of a lock-on feature, but it gets the job done. You have your regular combo of attacks as well as a charged swing that can be chained as long as you have stamina to do so. There's also a running and backstep attack that can be charged for more damage. The melee moveset has about as much depth as a new For Honor hero, and it's obviously lacking one important thing: range. However, it wasn't long before the game decided to humble me.
No, it's that freaking woman. I can't fucking hit her from down here.
Who's crazy now?
It's got to be like one of the only bosses you can't fucking hit, and it's the first one. You're having a joke. Have a freaking bubble.
A boss you probably wouldn't even think twice about under normal circumstances had checkmated me before even entering the arena. Gwendol downloaded Sun Tzu's Art of War on the Kindle and took notes on the High Ground chapter, making her unreachable. Now, if I wanted to take the coward's way out, I could just re-roll the campaign. But I want to overcome the problem, not remove it in its entirety. It would just be boring to re-roll each time a tricky situation presented itself.
Oh, hang on. Now, like, if I take all my clothes off, they're like freaking dark, so.
I was running out of ideas. Then I realized the Challenger's War Stomp ability has this shockwave effect. Hold on there, big boy. I said no guns. And this ability is a stomp that creates a shockwave. Looks like a bloody melee attack if I ever saw one.
That's 2 stomps there. I'm gonna fucking kill myself. Here. Come over here. Oh, Gwendol! Stop it, woman! Gwendol's actually a freaking terrorist. Get lost. Alright, Gwendol, honey, my stomps recharged. Time for your 4 PM stomping. Please. Please, Gwendol, come on. Boy. There we go. First boss. First boss of the melee only Remnant 2 run, boys. There we go. There we go.
The difference between a challenge run in Remnant compared to, say, Elden Ring is the RNG. You can't guarantee what loot the game will decide to give you. You must factor in what you're going to do if you can't get a specific weapon or ring. Again, you could just spam adventure mode to overlevel your character and get certain loot, but that removes the challenge. And after the absolute shit show of a first boss, RNGesus decided to give me a break. In the next area, the Huntress spawned, meaning I could bag her spear. This melee weapon comes in clutch, as its charge attack is a projectile that allows you to throw the spear at enemies. This was a lifesaver, as it desperately gave me the range I was missing when fighting Gwendol. I also went diving for some sewer pickles and bagged the Philosopher's Stone to unlock the Alchemist class. I'm shaking hands with Founder Ford. I'm wearing the Leto Mark II armor. Surprisingly, the projectile hits like a truck, making light work of the Nightweaver, despite one or two mishaps.
Oh, I had no stamina, because I'm fucking obese!
When I entered the labyrinth, I realized I'd made a mistake.
Oh, I've got to do the freaking cubes, haven't I? I've just realized that that's a thing in this game. No, forgot about that. Oh, this is not my idea. This is fucking stupid. Whose idea was this?
For some reason, I thought the labyrinth functioned like the other biomes, that it was randomly generated with bosses and encounters varying. So you can imagine the sheer look of horror on my face when I saw the Sentinel's arena.
What?
Now, I know what you're thinking. Precursor, it's okay, Chief. You got the spear, just use that. I need you all to understand that using the spear adds a whole new dynamic of pain to this scenario. I have to get myself in position while accounting for the time to wind up the animation, calculate the drop-off from the spear, and make sure I'm keeping tabs on the cube's patterns.
No! Oh! Oh!
Hello there.
Oh! Oh, what a freaking hit. Christ, I thought there was still one more.
The general enemies in Narude were a bit of a step up, so I decided it was time for an upgrade. Leto's armor turns you into an absolute unit.
Yeah, buddy!
And I really wanted to see just how tanky I could get. And after stomping on Gwendol for 24 minutes, doing 100 belly flops to get Leto's amulet so I could roll wasn't actually so bad. I comboed this with the Fey Bruiser ring, which gives 2 stacks of bulwark when dealing melee damage. That's about 10% damage reduction. More nerd stats coming, so you better hold on to your retainer, okay? The real kicker was the rerouting cable ring paired with the shield breaker weapon mutator. The ring gives 5% of max health as shields after spending 25 stamina up to 50%. So anytime I roll or throw a spear, I get shields. Similarly, the mutator gives 2% shields when doing a melee attack up to a max of 20%, making this great for trading damage. And the icing on the cake was the Ring of Grace, which regens 10% of max health over 10 seconds when you take damage. So sometimes taking a small amount of damage was beneficial, as my damage resistance was so high, the regen effect from the ring would give me more health than I had to begin with. 2 worlds in, and I was feeling unstoppable. And by the time I got to Yeisha, I was giving myself side quests to keep things interesting. I challenged myself to do the alternate kill on the Corruptor to get the Stonebreaker sword. It's a bit harder, but the sword you unlock is definitely worth it. Now, I was hoping Root Earth was going to push this build to its limits, since the whole area is a bit of a step up, and I was only power level 11, so it probably comes as a surprise that I folded Cancer up like a pretzel. Venom required a bit more patience, as his AoE spam in phase 2 has the potential to melt you if you're not careful, but he didn't take more than a couple of attempts. And here we are, the big finale, the one you've been waiting for. Probably one of the hardest bosses in the game, but not really. Target his weak spots, take out the orbs, no sweat, piece of piss. Yes, you can beat Remnant 2 with only melee. See you on the next one. It's just a bit anticlimactic though, isn't it? I felt like I had cheated by blitzing through 2/3 of the game with no issue. So instead of doing what any logical person would do and end the video here, I rolled a new adventure mode on Apocalypse. We started on Lossum, so that's where it'll end. Now we have a new objective. Can I beat one boss on Apocalypse with only melee? And cover me in eggs and flour and bake me for 40 minutes, because this was a bloody awful idea.
Finally,
worthy opponent. Our battle will be legendary.
The Bloat King is the anti-melee fight. To efficiently damage him, you must hit these blue orbs that he spawns intermittently. Whilst you're trying to do this, you must avoid various projectiles as well as falling into a pit of electric slugs below. This fat piece of bacon had the audacity to spawn with Hearty as well, so he has even more health. And after too many deaths, I noticed the orb casings don't necessarily need to be destroyed, as they eventually disappear on their own. I opted to wait for this to happen and get 2 or 3 good hits in. It was a lot more manageable to tank the projectiles like this than taking more damage to destroy the casing. I replaced Leto's amulet with the Indignant Fetish for a damage boost, as I could strafe the projectiles and backstep the King's lightning blast, so I didn't need the roll. It was a pain of an endurance fight, but following this strategy, I was able to take him down eventually.
I won.
Although Remnant 2's melee system is simple, it does work, but I wouldn't want to rely on it like this all of the time. But I think there's a lot of untapped potential to make it a viable part of some builds. Part of me does want to see what a maxed out version of this would look like, and see if it could take on some of the harder bosses on Apocalypse, but for now, I need a rest. I'm tired.